today I'm going to discuss really quickly what equity compensation is so you can better understand equity compensation and how to maximize your finances if this is a way that you're paid. Now, in simplistic terms, equity compensation is just a way that employees are paid in a non-cash form. So, for example, you have a salary that's paid out in a, let's say, a bi-weekly paycheck or a paycheck, and you may have bonuses that are paid out to you in a form of cash. Well, equity compensation is just paid out to you in a different way in the form of company stock or the right to purchase company stock. And this is something that both private and public companies participate in. Typically, stock options, as I'll mention here in a minute, are given out by private companies. And then public companies or larger companies use all the forms of compensation that I'm going to be discussing. Now, one thing with equity compensation is it does have a vesting schedule. So this is a period of time that you have to wait to actually receive the benefit or the stock or the right to purchase stock of your employer. And you can compare it to how a 401k plan has a period of time until the vesting period, which is the period of time until you actually get the full amount of the 401k. So think of that whenever you're thinking of what a vesting period is. It's very similar to how your 401k has a vesting period until the time you have to wait until all the money in the 401k is yours. Now, there is a couple different types of equity compensation. The first one that you've probably likely heard about before is stock options, which come in a couple of different forms. First, you're going to have incentive stock options, and then you also have non-qualified stock options. Now, a stock option is simply an option. It just gives you the right to purchase shares of your employer at some point down the road. This is after that vesting period has ended. The details of the stock options are always going to be in your company agreements, so make sure you read those over. But the difference between the two, to keep the video rather quick and short, is an incentive stock option is granted to employees of a company, and incentive stock options can have preferential tax treatment if utilized right. However, you could be subject to AMT or alternative minimum tax with those as well. So it's very important, if you do have incentive stock options, to understand the tax components that are beyond the scope of this video so you can maximize your money with the options and also minimize your tax exposure. Now, the other type of option obviously is the non-qualified stock option, which doesn't have preferential tax treatment, and those are typically given to contractors or non-employees of a company. Now, the next type of equity compensation is restricted stock units, and these are a little more simple to understand than stock options in the fact that you're granted restricted stock units, and at some period in the future they're going to vest, and at that point you have the decision to sell the shares or hold on to the shares, and you are taxed at the time that the shares do vest. So unlike stock options, the flexibility is a little harder to control with your taxes. So stock options, you can control the exposure to taxes a little bit with that flexibility, but with restricted stock units, you can't really control the taxes because once they vest, you are paid in taxes. You do pay in taxes, rather. The one question that's really common around restricted stock units is, should you sell them right away or should you hold on to them? And there's one question that you can ask yourself when this comes up to determine kind of a good decision to make around restricted stock units, and that is, if your company was to give you a bonus in cash in the same amount of the restricted stock units, would you buy your company stock? And if the answer is no, then you might look at selling the restricted stock units when they do vest and deploying that money elsewhere. The final form of compensation that we're going to discuss is employee stock purchase plans. And this is also fairly simple in the fact that it's something you participate in with your employer. And it allows you to take money from your paycheck and purchase shares of your company stock at a discount. And this discount is referred to as free money in the fact that that discount is the free money that you're getting. And once you purchase the shares at the discount, you can then either sell the shares or continue to hold on to the shares. Now, one thing to really pay attention to with all this equity compensation is, one, your taxes And then two, just make sure you're not getting too concentrated in your employer stock. You don't want to hold too much of stock, because your employer stock is one thing. One thing about your employer stock is you're using that to help fund your future, which could be retirement or future goals. But you're also working for the company, and it's providing for your present time and for your lifestyle now. So if you get too concentrated in your company stock and your company as far as a paycheck, you can become really concentrated in one area. So it's important to look at diversifying things after you have accumulated so much company stock, usually around that 15 to 20%. When you have one holding or one position in that range, it's smart to look at diversifying. But it's all based on your particular financial situation and what works best for you. So that's all I have on equity compensation. You can check out the blog below to kind of read more details about this. Like I said, equity compensation is an incredible perk to have within your employer's plan, and it can really build a lot of wealth in the future if you use it right. So make sure you plan very proactively if you have equity compensation. If you have any questions, happy to answer, happy to help in any way I can.